Hello, welcome to MendoLatino. Bienvenidos a MendoLatino. My name is Diana Coria.
Y yo me llamo Loreto Rojas. MendoLatino is a public affairs program broadcast on our local community radio station here in KZYX, KZYX. We have been on the air now for 5 years. We usually bring this program to you in Spanish, but today we are bringing you a special bilingual edition, which have come to be our occasional situation here because, well, I'm going to tell you why in a second, but the first half an hour will be only in English, quizás Spanglish, and the second half the same will be in Spanish for you all.
That's right, and we're doing this because, as many of you know, the Mendocino Film Festival is just a few days away. The festival is going to run from Thursday, May 29th through Sunday, June 1st. And you can find out all the information you need at the website, mendofilm.org. And tickets are on sale now on the website and also at the festival office in Mendocino on Ukiah Street. And you can also purchase tickets the same day for the film that we'll be talking about today, if it's not sold out. But we suggest you're going to buy a ticket in advance. But today, what we want to talk about is that we have the wonderful opportunity to speak firsthand with the director, producer, and also the main character, the protagonist, from one of the feature documentaries this year. The title is From Here, From There, or in Spanish, De Aquí, De Allá. And we're super excited.
Right. And yes, we are indeed very excited. And we want really that both of our audiences, the English speaking and Spanish speakings, to be able to hear about this incredible film, which will be showing during the film festival on Saturday, May 31st at Coast Cinemas in Fort Bragg at 10 in the morning. So please mark your calendars to see this film. Is called From Here, From There. And this film tells the story of how activists and a team of attorneys fought to save 700,000 dreamers from deportation during the first Trump administration. It is also a very personal story about Luis Cortés Romero, who is a DACA recipient himself, who, despite so many obstacles, becomes an immigrant attorney. This is a documentary about the fight to save dreamers from deportation and the need for compassionate and sensible immigration reform, and is more relevant than ever in the current political climate. So let's introduce our guests.
All right. Well, I'll introduce Marlene, or Mo Morris. She is an award-winning documentary filmmaker and the producer and director of From Here, From There, the film we're talking about, De Aquí, De Allá. And this is her second feature-length public television program. Mo has also produced short-form content. Most recently, Tomorrow We Carry On, Mañana Seguimos, which was the winner of the Best Short Documentary Migrant Voices Challenge at the San Diego Latino Film Festival. Congratulations. Mo's approach to filmmaking is informed by 10 years, we're going to talk about this later, as an immigration attorney, an extensive experience as a mediator and social justice organizer. Right. Mo is a former BAVAC, as we call it, or Bay Area Video Coalition Media Maker Fellow and winner, excuse me, of the Cine Golden Eagle Award.
Bienvenida, Mo.
Gracias. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And with her is here Luis Cortés Romero. As the managing partner in Novo Legal Group's office in the state of Washington, Luis Cortés Romero focuses exclusively on immigration litigation, with extensive experience in trial and appellate cases. Luis has tackled a wide variety of immigration-related matters, including constitutional issues, immigration detention challenges, immigration consequences of criminal convictions, and waivers of inadmissibility. His expertise extends to high-profile constitutional litigation involving equal protection and due process claims, as well as representation in governmental investigations. So welcome, Luis.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Loreto and I just saw your film last night, and it's very compelling and very emotional. And we are really looking forward to having you here in our community to talk to people what you've done. And so, first of all, congratulations to both of you. We want to start off with the question, and either one of you can start, but it's really, well, I guess, Mo, perhaps you start. How did you find this story and meet Luis?
Well, as a person who's been devoted to immigrant rights for a long time, I follow the news, and of course, this was big news when DACA was rescinded back in 2017. And I, like many others, was volunteering at nonprofit centers to help prepare the applications and renewals for Dreamers so that they could at least have protection in the initial phases while we didn't know what was going to happen. And I was aware that litigation had begun to seek an injunction for the rescission to be barred, and that Luis was central in that legal team. And after following it for some time, I found it just fascinating that the fight was being led by an undocumented immigrant, a DACA recipient, and that all of the plaintiffs in their particular case, and there were several around the country, but this case was all DACA recipient plaintiffs. And that stood out to me. And I got up my nerve and called Luis and asked if I could tag along when they went to the Supreme Court for what was the main landmark case that he would co-counsel. And he said yes. So at that point, we began following him and telling both the story of the fight for DACA and interweaving it with his personal journey.
Well, so just a follow-up question, and then Loreto has one for Luis. So were you already planning to, I mean, because I've been a filmmaker and I know it's like a lot of prep. So were you already planning to make the film, or was like, oh my God, this is a story that I just really have to cover and I'm going to start a new film project now?
Well, I'm always looking for a good, compelling film project and something that's newsworthy. And this just really ticked all the boxes for me. It's really a full circle event to be able to get so in depth once again with immigration law and to follow somebody who's right in the center of the action. So no, I hadn't planned on making this film. I had planned on making a film, and this topic and person just really caught my attention, and it felt like a story that needed to be told.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So Luis, I want to ask you could you please explain for our audience what a DACA recipient is? I think, yesterday and during this week, while I have been talking with some people, I can see that people don't understand what a DACA is. We in the immigrant community and activism, we really know exactly. But could you please explain what makes you a DACA recipient?
And it's it's confusing because it's confusing. So it's very hard to understand. But I think there are two kind of terms here that would be that we have to identify to really understand what it is. First of all, is this term of dreamers. Who are dreamers? And we have now come to know here in the United States, dreamers are people who came here as children and then grew up here, studied in these institutions, sometimes served in the military. So these are people who were brought in here as children and were raised as Americans, except for having a piece of paper that says it. Now, DACA recipients is a specific part of the Dreamer community. DACA recipients DACA is a program that was ultimately announced by President Obama in 2012 after a lot of community organizing that rallied this to happen. And so what the DACA program did is that certain people, so you have to be of a certain age, have to be in the country for a certain period of time, have to enter before a certain time frame. So it's a very specific group of people. If they give all the information to the government, your fingerprints, all your background information, you have to get a background check. And after the government has done those background checks, then they'll give you a protection to be able to stay in the United States and a work permit to be able to work in the United States for 2 years at a time. And so they do it for 2 years at a time because they want to keep checking up on you to make sure that you haven't gotten into any trouble, and basically you're playing by the rules that they set. And so the DACA recipients are part of the dreamers that were able to get this 2 year protection at a time.
And according to your knowledge, how large is the group of dreamers, you think?
Yeah, it got to be up to 800,000 people that applied. We know that there's a lot of people who could have applied that didn't. When this legal battle took place, one of the things that the courts did is that they made it so that everybody who had DACA can continue to renew it, but people who didn't have it couldn't apply anymore. So the program did kind of get frozen in its applicants. That applicant size has gotten a little bit smaller because people have now either left the country or they were able to get legal status some other way. But we do know that at its height, it was about 800,000 people who depended on this program. Right now, I think it's closer to 500,000.
Wow.
Thank you, Luis.
If I could just add something to that, and Luis, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're talking about the dreamer population as opposed to that particular subset of DACA recipients, it's much, much larger. As Luis said, you had to qualify, have come in by a certain age. So there were many, many people who, by the same definition, entered with their parents when they were under 16, but they entered in the wrong time period. So they didn't qualify for DACA, but they're dreamers. They similarly were raised in the United States and consider themselves American. And similarly, there's a lot of people, because the program has been frozen, that would qualify for DACA that haven't been able to apply, and that now have aged out as well because they don't qualify for those specific age requirements. So people say that's well over 1 million, 120,000 high school graduates every year would qualify for some protection as dreamers and cannot apply. So the population is huge, even though the DACA population has shrunk somewhat and is probably more in the range of 550, 600,000 at this time.
Oh, right. Okay. Interesting, that difference. And what I want to ask now is, Luis, so you, I know it's in the film. We don't want to give away too much about the film, but the film is a lot about your personal life. And you, like so many young people, didn't even know that you didn't have papers until a certain point in your life, which is a common point. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. It's a common occurrence, I think, for a lot of us dreamers to eventually become aware that not only that we weren't born here, but what are the consequences of not being born here? What does that really mean? And the undocumented experience really is learning that over and over again. We learn that we what it means to be undocumented because sometimes we can't get driver's licenses in where we live. We become aware again as to what it means when we qualify for certain scholarships, but we can't get them because we don't have legal status, or when we can't apply for financial aid. I learned it again when I was going to law school, and found out again what it meant to be undocumented. So it's one of the kind of these series of reoccurring events of like, oh, this is what it means to be undocumented. And these are the consequences of it. And it's something that kind of follows you throughout your life. And, starts at a pretty young age with some of the school things that you can participate in. And it kind of continues to show itself over and over and over again. And I think, that's a common experience that binds a lot of us dreamers.
Right. And so you, if I remember in the film, you were about to go on a school trip. You had won, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had gone to a middle school where in eighth grade we were learning about a lot of like the old England type of history, old European history, and it was we had started to fundraise so that we can go to Europe that summer. And they gave us chocolates to like See's Candy chocolates. I don't know if See's Candy's around anymore, but they to go ahead and sell. And I really hustled those chocolates to try to like get that money. And I was able to meet the goal. And I went up to my mom and I was like, I'm ready. I sold these chocolates and that's when she let me know, like, oh, you can't go. And she told me why I couldn't go because I wasn't born here, didn't have legal status to be able to go and come back. And all I heard was you couldn't go, right? Like it was hard to kind of really absorb everything in and all the particulars as to like, well, what does it mean to not have legal status and what is that really? All I wanted to know is that I wanted to go with my friends. But it was my first real heartbreak in becoming and learning what it means to be undocumented.
Wow.
So
And
oh,
go ahead.
so Luis, and I wanted to ask you the same question that we asked to Mo. So how was for you to be suddenly part of this project? How uh, at the time did you feel you were ready to actually be the protagonist of the movie, or you thought it would be just like more it would be just reflecting the moment that you were living in this legal battle? How was for you to become the subject, the protagonist of the story?
Yeah, I by that point I had been part of a few different projects. And so I had been able to I was used to being in front of a camera, being followed around for a little while. I also knew that sometimes projects get worked on and then sometimes get shelved and sometimes projects don't come to light. And so I was so focused in the work because it was in the middle of everything that was happening during the first Trump administration. And I honestly don't think I appreciated how much we needed to document the moment that we were in. So my attitude going into it was, okay, you can do what you need to do, but just don't get in the way. I have work to do, and so please don't get in the way. And you can come with me if you want, but don't stand in front of me, figuratively and literally. And so, and so that was kind of my attitude going in, and Mo was very accommodating. She wanted to make sure that she was there to capture everything while trying not to get in the way, as much as filmmakers and by nature, if you're in a documentary, they're gonna be all up in your business. And so, so it was great. I mean, I was able to focus on the work without really feeling like, feeling like they're there. You have three or four people around you the whole time, so it's hard not to feel that. But I was really just focused on the work. And I know that sometimes made for some frustrating moments because I would have to move one way or go another way, and then I would tell Mo after the fact instead of thinking about how this would help in the documentary. But Mo was very flexible and was able to deal with a lot of me being frustrating after the fact. So big shout out to Mo for being so accommodating.
Was it important to you, her background? I mean, I know myself having been a filmmaker and a white woman and having approached like Latino groups to work with, it's like there's a certain amount of vetting that goes on, whether it's internally or with a group of people. It's just to say, is this the right person to tell the story? So talk a little bit about that.
That part to me was really important at the onset, because I had been part of projects where, and I've seen projects that I wasn't a part of where it seems to almost exploit the narrative, and or fall into kind of tired tropes of immigrants, and so I wanted the story to be told authentically, to be told from a perspective of empowerment, not always just victimizing the immigrant community, which sometimes is where these stories go. And so one of the things that I was very impressed by was that when we had some of our earlier meetings, the team that Mo surrounded herself with, I think, was really important. She let me know that there was going to be undocumented filmmakers on the film working on the movie. One of the people who also was working on the movie with her, Jed, had been a longtime activist from way before, doing all sorts of things in Texas and a whole bunch of other stuff. I forget all the stories. So she surrounded herself with a team of organizers, activists, and undocumented filmmakers, and basically said, "This is the crew who is going to help me with the movie." And that gave me such peace of mind because I didn't have to second guess really, like, where is this going? And I didn't have to have that anxiety about how is this story going to be told at the end. And I hope this is all worth it, because I knew that she had the right people connecting her to build that kind of cultural capital. So Mo came in with a plan, and I felt so much at ease knowing that there was gonna be some of these things that were safeguarded. So I felt really comfortable when Mo said, "Hey, this is who I am. This is the crew that we're rolling with, and we want to be able to tell the story correctly." And I thought that that was very astute of her to be able to understand that, she herself may have some limitations about how to understand the story and community, but she was going to make sure that she had this sounding board of ideas of people that would help her with it.
Yes, and I want to remind our audience that you are listening to MendoLatino, this special edition, English, Spanish. And we are here with Mo Morris, and she's the director of this documentary. And with her is Luis Cortés, who is the protagonist. And you are going to see that he's a lawyer and a DACA recipient. But with them is going to be Jed Rife, or Reef, sorry if I'm not pronouncing properly his last name. He's the producer from here and from there, the person that Luis was just mentioning, a documentary film director, producer, and multimedia storyteller. He has produced 15 nationally broadcasting public television specials, and he has won more than 40 major awards, and he's a Sundance Documentary Fund alumni and Gerbaud fellow, and he's going to be with Mo and Luis after the film, which is going to be at the Coast Cinemas here in the town of Fort Bragg on Saturday, the May 31st at 10 in the morning. So please come see the movie from here, from there. It's a documentary. And stay for the Q&A sessions that is going to be conducted by our local extraordinary filmmaker, and I cannot say enough words, Pat Ferrero, but she'll be there talking with these guys. So, Diana.
That's right. Well,
could I add maybe a little bit?
Yes.
Unless you were maybe going to go there, but
we love it. Go.
But in order, just to piggyback on what Luis said in terms of choosing to work with each other, and the team that I assembled to really cover so much of the information that I would not have known personally. I needed people on the team with that lived experience. And one of the two producers, the other one in addition to Jed Rife, is a young filmmaker called Nicole Solicison. She herself was formerly undocumented. She's a DACA recipient. And between her and the editor who's Latino, the film cinematographer who's Latino, who could, assist with the language barriers, although I do speak Spanish, not as a native speaker. And it just was invaluable. I could not have done the film without that kind of access, without that lived experience, without that assistance in framing the story for the edit to really be an authentic story. And I think it did help that I had been an immigration lawyer. It's a very technical case. And it was important for me, for Luis to know that he could let us know at any time to turn off the camera. If there were sensitive things being discussed about his clients, I'm well aware of the confidentiality and anonymity critical issues in dealing with immigrants and immigrants in proceedings. So it was just a really important collaboration. I really appreciated when Luis could let us know about what was coming down the pike, and we could assemble a team to be present and film it. And that was something I recognized the importance of those plot points, if you will, when things were happening related to the case or his personal life. So I think it was a well-rounded team, and that is something I would say for all filmmakers. It's just essential when doing a story, particularly about a population that is not something that you grew up with, to have that sort of cultural competency within the filmmaking team.
Absolutely. I totally agree with everything that you're saying. And one thing that neither of you have really brought into this yet, and that's very strong in the film, is the presence of Luis's family, not just clients and the case, but your beautiful mother, your siblings. I mean, how did you get them involved? Like, you were already out in the spotlight, but you know, so many families, especially families that have a mixed status situation, are very hesitant to go into the limelight. So what was that process like, and how are they doing now?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was hesitant. I was hesitant. I was hesitant, particularly to have my mom involved um for a lot of safety concerns, to be honest. I started representing this dreamer by the name of Daniel Ramirez, who's also in the film, who was wrongfully accused of being a gang member, and then the government would not let up on them just saying it was a mistake, a pattern that we're seeing currently. But when we started the litigation with him, we saw some retaliation that happened to some of his family members. And so I was nervous about what critiquing the government could mean, and really aggressively contesting the government would mean to my family. So I was nervous and apprehensive about it. But the one who was really for it was my mom and my family. They were the ones who were very willing to support it, and willing to put our story out there. And on the one hand, I was very nervous about it and a little apprehensive, but on the other hand, I know that my mom, as we can see in the film, she sometimes, when she's very steadfast about a decision, she's usually right, and knows what she's doing, and so I had to have faith on that too.
Yeah, we really followed Luis's lead on that. Obviously, as a documentarian, it's important to build a holistic picture of a protagonist, to know where they come from and where the influences they've had, and to hear it from multiple people. And it was certainly a question how that would work, but it was interesting that I was approached by his sisters saying, we really would like to have our mom be able to tell part of the story. And then it was bounced to Luis: is this appropriate? What are the risks and benefits, and what's your call on it?
Wow, she's such a strong character in the film, and so she's great. And your siblings, I fell in love with your siblings as well. It's a very beautiful film. Loreto, how much time do we have left in this half? Because I have a burning question that I have for Mo and Luis.
Yes, we have a couple of minutes, and but also I wanted to say that I enjoyed terribly, well, no me gusta esa palabra, terriblemente, pero me encantó. I enjoy so much how you also used graffiti and animation to tell some part of the story, because sometimes certain topics can be difficult to deal with, and I really appreciate the way the narrative it was constructed. So Yeah, I wanted to say that. Go ahead, Diana. That would be our last question, and then we'll switch to Spanish to talk more about the movie for our Spanish-speaking audience.
All right. Well, I am really interested in what you hope to get. What kind of, I know you sent me, and I was so impressed by this, an outreach strategy. And, having a background in social justice filmmaking, we really need that. And some people just see films and they're passive about it, or even some filmmakers make their films and they just expect them to do the work themselves. What, especially now, I mean, probably, I know the film took several years to make and it took place mostly during the first Trump administration. Right now, we're in the second presidency of this administration, and things are much worse in a lot of ways. Has that impacted your out? Like, first, I guess the part one is, what do you want to get out of it? How do you want to work this film? How do you want to use this film? And second, has that strategy had to change given our current political climate?
Well, I can take a shot at that, and then turn it over to Luis, because he's really been out in front with audiences and really discussing the current situation and how to utilize the film, given where we're at right now. I will say the film outreach, what I'd call the impact strategy, engagement and impact, hasn't really changed. I mean, the methods may have changed, the concerns about safety and addressing that have certainly amplified, but the original goal, in addition to putting it in front of people who may not have this lived experience and develop some understanding of what it's like so that they can be informed voters and try to bring the law along with the reality of dreamers being part of our community and contributing and needing to have a pathway to citizenship. But a larger, very immediate purpose has always been to address the vulnerabilities that undocumented students and young people experience, the same kind of vulnerabilities that Luis experienced, and to convene parties that have the ability to provide resources and illuminate pathways for professional achievement. We see one example of that for Luis, and I would amplify that to say beyond professional achievement, but just a very productive life in the U.S. And to achieve their potential. So that is what we've been going after with the kinds of screenings we've had in higher education, community colleges, high schools, communities, law firms, anybody that is in a position to bring those resources together, and similarly to provide a platform for the young people who are in that situation to gather together and determine, make those alliances and strengthen their bond within their community, and see somebody in a film that they feel speaks for them and tells their story. So it serves as a jumping off point for those conversations to happen. And I don't think that's changed. That's still very much a primary goal of the film.
Probably more necessary than ever, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think the other element here, I think the DACA recipients, because they are so already publicly giving all their information to the government, they are already in this position. We recently interviewed one of our DACA documentados, como decimos, ¿no? Neighbors and friends and collaborator and educator, a local young person. And I think that also gives that particular group of dreamers kind of like, do you agree with me, Luis, that in a certain way you are already so publicly, I don't know how to say, out, as a person that it was undocumented and is doing well and it wants to achieve a status that allows you to continue developing your life instead of coming out into the light, instead of staying in the shadows. So go ahead, Luis.
I think, I mean, there's a few things here. I think one thing that I think the film does now in the current political climate is that I think it really reminds folks the power of community, like how important it is and how powerful it can be. And I think that there's concentric circles with that. The importance of undocumented community finding each other. Because there is a sense of feeling lost and feeling alone when you think you're the only one going through it. And when you're hearing all the news of everything that's happening, it's very easy to feel alone and say, is anybody else feeling as nervous as I am? And so having that community is very important. And one of the things that I've seen through the film is that it's allowed other undocumented students, other undocumented young people, other just undocumented communities being able to be in community with each other. And then two, I think one of the things that the film also reminds us of is the power of community. You know, we were able as a community to take on one of the strongest governments in the world, the US federal government, into a court battle, into a legal battle, and we won. And that was a concerted effort through the community, the undocumented community, but the allies that came with us.
Yeah.
And we had very powerful allies that we were able to bring with us that I think 10 years ago, people would have never thought of that. But it was because of the community that we were able to kind of bring together. And so now more than ever, it's so important to not just find the community so that we're feeling less alone, but remember that there is significant power in this community that has a lot of political power, even if we aren't able to vote all the time.
Muchas gracias, Luis. And thank you so much, Mo, for coming and talking to us in this first part of our program. Vamos a cambiar a hablar español. But before we do, I want to remind to our audience that you can see this documentary. It's called From Here, From There, de aquí, de allá. Is going to be part of our Mendocino Film Festival, which it gives us so many opportunities to see the work of independent filmmakers and things that really touch deeply our community like this film does. So please get your tickets. It's going to be at Coast Cinemas in Fort Bragg on Saturday, May 31st at 10 in the morning. And as I said before, Mo Morris and also Luis Cortés and also the producer, Jet Rife, is going to be there with a Q and QA time that is going to be presented by Pat Ferrero. So, yeah. Entonces, muchas gracias a todos por escuchar esta mañana Mendo Latino. Ustedes están escuchando un programa especial bilingüe y ahora vamos a cambiar a hablar en español sobre un momento, Diana quiere decir algo.
I
Adelante,
just
Diana.
want to say, I know there's a lot of bilingual people out here in our audience, and thank you for listening to the first part. The second part is not going to be an exact translation of the first part. So those of you who do speak Spanish, hang on in there because we're going to do more of a deep dive into the film and into a lot of critical issues that we're listening to today. Loreto.
Y por supuesto, nosotros sabemos que muchas personas, como dice Diana, en nuestra comunidad son bilingües y disfrutan escuchando nuestro programa en ambas lenguas. Entonces, hoy estamos en un programa especial donde estamos destacando una de las películas que se va a presentar en el Festival de Cine de Mendocino, que siempre pasa aquí en nuestra costa en el último fin de semana de mayo y los primeros días de junio. Son 3 días de muchísimas películas, que algunas son películas de ficción, otras son documentales y bastantes películas de cortos que también se presentan en grupos. Y el festival comienza con una gran fiesta el jueves 29 de mayo y tenemos una cantidad increíble de películas, ya se me olvidó cuantísimas son, muchísimas, que van a ser presentadas en 4 distintos lugares que se pueden ver, porque en Mendocino hay 3 lugares, el Crown Hall, el Matheson Center of the Arts, y hay una carpa enorme que se está poniendo que se puede ver desde la carretera. Y además de eso, muchas películas van a ser presentadas en el cine en Fort Bragg. Así que por favor encuentren toda la información que necesitan en mendofilm.org. Allí pueden comprar sus entradas, pero también pueden dirigirse al pueblo de Mendocino, comprarlas allí. Y también van a estar, por supuesto, disponibles para las películas que se presentan en el cine en Cocinema. Y nos encontramos hoy día aquí con Diana para hablar de este documental que se llama De aquí, de allá, que se va a presentar el sábado 31 de mayo a las 10 de la mañana, ¿sí? Diana, ¿quieres presentar?
Claro, estamos súper contentos. Tenemos con nosotras a Mo Morris, que es la directora y productora, una de las productoras de la película, este documental maravilloso. Y también tenemos el protagonista del documental, Luis Cortés. Primero voy a hablar un poco de qué película estamos hablando y después vamos a presentar a nuestros invitados. La película de Aquí de Allá cuenta la historia de cómo activistas y un equipo de abogados lucharon para salvar 700,000 Dreamers o DACA recipients de la deportación durante el primer gobierno del actual presidente Trump. También, al mismo tiempo, es una historia muy personal sobre la vida de Luis Cortés Romero, que también es un recipiente de DACA. Y a pesar de tantos obstáculos en su vida, él se matriculó a la universidad y estudió leyes. Hoy es un abogado especializado en inmigración. Y este documental cuenta esa lucha para salvar a muchos jóvenes de la deportación y también cuenta, cuenta como la parte muy humana y la necesidad que tenemos para crear una reforma migratoria compasiva y sensata. Y eso cobra más relevancia más que nunca hoy en ese clima político actual. Entonces, voy a presentar primero a Luis y después a Mo. Luis Cortés Romero, que está con nosotros, es un socio director del Novo Legal Group. Es una firma legal ubicada en el estado de Washington y se especializa en litigios de inmigración. Y Luis, con experiencia en juicios y apelaciones, Luis aborda una amplia variedad de asuntos relacionados con la inmigración, incluyendo cuestiones constitucionales, impugnaciones de detención migratoria, consecuencias migratorias de condenas penales, exenciones. Y su experiencia abarca litigios constitucionales de alto perfil relacionados con la igualdad de protección y el debido proceso, así también como la representación de investigaciones gubernamentales. También, que no es muy común, no hemos visto eso, pero Luis es un dreamer, o sea, tiene un estatus legal de DACA. Él es el primer abogado Dreamer que ha peleado este mismo asunto de DACA en la Corte Suprema. Y este es una parte central de la película. Luis, muy bienvenidos.
Muchísimas gracias. Gusto estar aquí con ustedes.
Qué
Y con él se encuentra Mo Morris, que es la directora y productora de este documental. Esta es la segunda película que ella hace para la televisión. Y ella ha producido también varios cortos y recientemente produció uno que se llama Mañana Seguimos o Tomorrow We Carry On, que ha ganado recientemente el premio de Migrant Voices Challenge en el Festival de Cine Latino de San Diego. Muchas felicidades, Mo. Y también ella es muy interesante porque ella en su vida anterior era también una abogada de inmigración y tiene ahora una extensa experiencia como mediadora y como organizadora alrededor de la justicia social. Y estamos muy contentas que Mo se haya quedado aquí y conversado un ratito con nosotras. Muchas gracias, Mo. Entonces queremos arrancar con Luis y preguntarle ahora sobre cómo fue para ti, Luis, que decidir participar en una película y sobre un tema tan personal para ti, que se mezcla en esta película, como estaba diciendo Diana, esta cuestión, esta batalla legal que te estás involucrado de pronto, pero también tu vida personal y cómo eso nos ayuda a nosotros a comprender la situación de muchas personas en nuestra comunidad. ¿Cómo fue para ti la experiencia que te viniera alguien y te dijera, oye, queremos hacer una película? A ver.
Y bueno, fue algo de que me abrió mucho los ojos porque de una parte yo como abogado, que trabajo con muchos clientes, parte de mi papel, parte de mi responsabilidad es de poder contar de las historias de ellos en una forma que se puedan entender. De hecho, cuando estuvimos en el litigio de la batalla de DACA en la primera administración del presidente Trump, una de las cosas que le prometí a nuestros clientes, las personas que fueron como la cara de nuestro litigio, les dije, miren, no les puedo prometer de que vamos a ganar, pero lo que sí les puedo prometer es de que ellos van a escuchar las historias de ustedes y de que yo me voy a asegurar de eso. Entonces, de una parte, pues ya tenía yo como ese entendimiento sobre la importancia de una historia, pero es mucho más, es muy diferente hacerlo de esa manera, de que estar en una posición más vulnerable, de donde voy a dejar a alguien más entrar a mi vida, escuchar todo y luego poder contarlo a algo muy públicamente. Claro, es incómodo, hay momentos incómodos, hay momentos donde siento que me siento muy vulnerable, muy expuesto. Y entonces sí hubo esos momentos, hasta de hecho cuando lo veo a veces todavía la película me siento un poco expuesto, un poco vulnerable porque es toda mi vida allí. Pero también vi eso sí me dejó como sentirme cómo los clientes se sienten cuando ellos me están dejando a mí de contar sus historias, de que así es de hace sentir de cuando alguien te conoce muy bien a contarle públicamente a alguien más. Hubo momentos también de preocupación de que ser tan públicamente abierto con mi familia, si iba a haber represalias, tanto por medio del gobierno, pero no nomás ellos, estamos hablando de una administración que tiene una capacidad de ser muy divisa. Entonces, también del público que va a estar escuchando esta historia que no esté de acuerdo y de que vamos a tener también represalias o comentarios o lo que sea de alguien que no esté de acuerdo con nosotros. Entonces, fueron muchos de esos tipos de sentimientos, pero a final de cuentas, cuando vimos cómo salió todo y la forma como salió la historia, estuvimos sumamente orgullosos de cómo salió y valió la pena, honestamente. Pero sí hubo momentos durante el transcurso del proceso de que se sentía un poco incómodo y vulnerable y expuesto. Entonces, así era.
Claro. Y también en la película, bueno, para las personas que están escuchando la radio y no han visto la película todavía, uno tiene ese imaginario de un abogado que está muy formal, que está con su traje, pero la película abre con Luis está aplicando otro tatuaje a su cuerpo y es un joven de California y ahora con barba. Am, entonces, cuentas muchas cosas tan personales, Luis, que creo que son cosas muy emblemáticas de muchos jóvenes y jóvenes que yo he conocido personalmente que son latinos. Uno de ellos es esa crisis de identidad, de no ser suficientemente mexicano o suficientemente norteamericano. Entonces, en algún momento en la película, tú escoges una identidad punk para expresarte. Entonces, quiero quiero escuchar un poco de ti y también cuando y otra parte de esto es también una cosa que creo que es súper emblemática, o yo he escuchado mucho, es eso cambia, toda esa crisis identitaria cambia cuando tú entras en la universidad y trabajas y vas a trabajar y estudiar Chicano Studies. Entonces, si puedes hablar un poco de esa trayectoria tuya.
Sí, claro. Sí, yo creo que una de las cosas de que me pasó a mí, de que siento que le ha pasado a varias personas, de que si hay esta crisis de identidad donde hay un lugar y momento para ser latino o mexicano y un lugar y momento para ser americano, y que los dos no necesariamente se mezclan. Entonces, en mi vida latina o mi vida mexicana, así había momentos donde me costaba el español o no me gustaba tanto la música que yo estaba escuchando en ese momento. Entonces, pues entonces no soy mexicano. Pero entonces en mi vida americana, con mis amigos y lo demás, tenía un acento, igual no siempre me salían las palabras que quería tener, y me gustaba música en español. Entonces, entonces eres muy mexicano. Entonces, sí sentía que en ambas partes no era ninguno de los dos y fue algo que sí sentí hasta mucho más grande en mi vida. Fue cuando yo ya fui a la escuela. Yo fui a la escuela en California, fui a la Universidad de San Jose State University y parte de lo que estudié allí fue los estudios de Chicano Studies, que viene siendo el estudio de la cultura mexicana y latinoamericana, y la mezcla entre los dos. Y una de las cosas que me abrió mucho los ojos cuando estuve en la universidad fue no lo material que estaba leyendo, que había mucha cultura latina de que mezclaba los dos, que forzaba a los dos culturas juntarse, tanto la forma de vestir, la forma como hablar o la forma de música. Pero también fue una de las veces que yo vi profesores, personas con doctorados que se veían como yo me veía, de que se veían como se veían mis amigos, de que eran latinos, de que hablaban español y en inglés y el Spanglish, de que tenían tatuajes y de que venían de esta como nueva escuela. De que yo realmente no había conocido en mi casa, donde era un lugar mucho más conservativo, mucho más religioso, de que los tatuajes se veían como algo para, para malandros, como decía mi mamá. Entonces, viendo de que había este estilo que se veía un poquito más rebelde, pero igual estudiado, fue algo como que me explotó la cabeza, de que cómo es de que alguien se puede ver así y aún puede tener un puesto de respeto, un puesto estudiado. Y es cuando empecé a ver de que, ok, las dos se pueden hacer. Y entonces fue yo cuando empecé a mejor a entender en vez de verlo, de que no soy ni de aquí ni de allá, soy de ningunos lugares, lo empecé a ver como lo opuesto, de que no, yo vengo de los dos lugares, les guste o no les guste. Entonces, si voy en mi vida americana, me voy a tener todas mis mexicanadas, les guste o no les guste, y luego si estoy en mi mundo mexicano, mi mundo latino, me voy a traer mi cultura americana porque también de allí vengo, les guste o no les guste. Y yo vengo de los dos lados a tomar espacio. Entonces fue cuando empecé a cambiar mucho mi mentalidad de no es de que no soy de aquí ni de allá, es de que vengo de los dos y voy a tomar el espacio que se ocupe y en que no les guste, pues que no les guste y ya. Entonces, y viene siendo igual con mi actitud rebelde que empecé a crecer cuando estaba de adolescente, de gustándome el punk rock y este como identidad de nueva escuela. Fue algo donde sí lo pensé mucho y la película empieza en yo recibiendo un tatuaje, pero es en las manos. Y fue algo donde yo igual me esperé mucho porque estuve esperando a una etapa en mi carrera donde yo ya había logrado suficiente, donde la gente ya no tanto me pueda juzgar por lo como me veo y de que tengo ciertas metas que ya he logrado. Eso sí me esperé un buen tiempo y dije, yo creo que ya ha llegado un tiempo donde quiero ser en las manos, aunque sea un poco discreto, pero en y quiero que sea algo que me recuerde que yo voy a tomar espacio en los dos lados. Y ya de allí no nomás viene siendo en un lugar latino y no latino, pero viene siendo, yo crecí en un lugar muy humilde, de muy bajos recursos, donde teníamos que preocuparnos cómo íbamos a comer o dónde íbamos a vivir. Y luego ahorita ya estoy llegando en una etapa donde estoy con personas y en puestos de alto privilegio. Y yo también me tengo que recordar que puedo estar en los dos lados. Esto, lo habíamos comentado, algo de code switching, ¿verdad? Poder manejar los dos mundos y que vengo de los dos mundos sin estar intimidado. Entonces, los tatuajes realmente, que soy de aquí y soy de allá, es un recordatorio de eso en las veces de que me siento un poco de que tal vez no quepo aquí.
Muchas
Ex-
gracias, Luis. Yo sé que Mo quiere agregar algo a esta interesantísima conversación y tengo que recordarle, nos quedan 5 minutos, así que podemos continuar la conversación. Mo, adelante, por favor.
Sí, por favor. Bueno, es bueno que oye, como Luis explica la importancia de este conflicto de identidad y este era muy, muy importante para la película porque es algo universal que gente en esta posición siento y él me dijo historia de esto muchas veces y este um, que ah, era el título de película porque es muy importante que no que es de aquí y de allá y estamos muy agradecidos que Luis y perdón mi español no es perfecto porque no soy nativo pero quería hablar si puedo y estamos muy agradecidos que Luis haya aceptado participar tan plenamente y abrir su vida privada y explicar pacientemente la ley o su vida y este es un tema muy importante, especialmente en una familia que es estado mixto y tiene hermana que son ciudadanos y es muy importante. Entonces, cuando teníamos esta historia del pasado y no tenemos documentación completa, era importante representar con animación y teníamos unos increíbles animators, se llaman Lauren y Ashley Fundora. Eran chicanas también, muy jóvenes, y escoge este estilo chicano que representa tal vez la identidad y también con la música que era de composer Greg Landau y Camilo Landau, que son latinos también, y con música que refleja lo que es importante de Luis's background. Entonces, bueno,
Muchas,
todo viene del Luis.
sí, muchas gracias, Mo, por eso. Sí, es muy interesante en la película ver cómo todos estos elementos se van juntando. Y el tema, por supuesto, de la identidad es un tema que nos atraviesa a todos en muchos lugares. Yo soy chilena y le contaba a Diana que yo también tuve mi era punk en Chile también, porque es algo, es como lo que tú dices, Mo, es una búsqueda, ¿no? Es una búsqueda por la identidad y este espacio. Y estoy muy feliz por Luis, que él eh, se da cuenta, como dice un amigo mío, bueno, y si el otro se ofende, pues es su problema, no es el mío.
Claro, y quiero decir una cosa más, que audiencia tiene que ver esta película, es genial. Me encanta la parte cuando tú estás como incierto si vas a ir a la universidad y tu mamá dice, mira, tú vas a ir a esta universidad porque no llegamos a esos espacios frecuentemente. Entonces es como tu mamá también en algún momento te dice, no, 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 ahí vas tú.
Y, en, e-
Entonces,
y con eso nos vamos a quedar, queridos oyentes, porque ya se nos acaba el tiempo. Pero sí, vivan las madres, porque ellas sí saben, ¿sí? Y por favor, querida audiencia, no se pierdan esta película. Va a estar el sábado 31 de mayo a las 10 de la mañana en COS Cinemas en Fort Bragg. Van a estar allí las personas a quienes acaban de oír en nuestra entrevista de hoy de MendoLatino, la directora Mo Morris, también el productor y también va a estar ahí Luis hablando de su experiencia siendo de repente protagonista de una película. Muchísimas gracias. No se pierdan, miren por favor también el mendofilm.org para encontrar más películas y visiten y tomen esta oportunidad de ver las excelentes películas que tiene Mendocino Film Festival. Muchas gracias a nuestros invitados por venir y nosotros en Mendo Latino les decimos hasta pronto.
hasta luego.